eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Welcome to Deception Detection Radio. I'm Kay.
And I'm Chad.
We pray you all had a blessed week. Tonight, we're very excited to welcome our special guest, Hugh Newman, to Deception Detection Radio. Welcome, Hugh. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Glad to be on.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. Well, we're going to go ahead and say tonight's opening prayer. It's going to be led by Chad, and then we'll get started.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us all together. We are very happy and excited to have Hugh Newman on here to talk about the work that he has been doing over the years. Feel very blessed to have him come and enlighten everybody and let them know about the giants and all the megalithic structures all over the planet. We hope that everybody will find this very informative and very edifying, and we thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' holy and mighty name, amen. Hugh, why don't you go ahead and you tell everybody about yourself, your companies, books you've wrote, and just let everybody know a little bit about you.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Hugh Newman. I'm based in the West Country in England. My most recent book is co-authored with Jim Vieira, called Giants on Records, America's Hidden History, Secrets in the Mounds and the Smithsonian Files. I have another book out called Earth Grids, The Secret Patterns of Gaia's Sacred Sites, small book by Wooden Books Publishers, and working on a book currently about stone circles and another further one about giants as well. So busy boy. I'm also the organizer of the Megalithomania conference, which we do every May in Glastonbury in England. Our next one is on the 20th, 21st of May 2017. Also, the Origins Conference, I work on that with Andrew Collins. We do tours all around the world, Peru, Egypt, Mexico, Turkey, and many other places. Armenia, we're doing one too next year, and also Angkor Wat and Gunung Padang and Ireland and Sardinia. We really get around. It's kind of what we love doing. And basically I'm an ancient mysteries megalithic researcher. That's my main focus.
Very good, very good. And I don't even know where to begin with you. You are so all over the place. I guess we could dive into your book that you co-authored with Jim Vieira, The Giants on Record. You want to tell people about how that came about?
Sure, yeah, The Giants on Record, but that's quite a controversial little tome. That Jim and I kind of met up in about, I think, 2011 when I actually organised a Megalithomania conference in his vicinity in New England, in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I met him there, and he'd been doing some research on the stone chambers of New England and the dolmens and the megaliths, and so had I. And after that, we put our heads together and realized all the research we've been doing, especially in North America, on ancient sites and ancient cultures, always ended up, we kept finding giants. We both were aware, both got inspired by the work of Ross Hamilton, who wrote A Tradition of Giants, which is a legendary book. We actually call him the godfather of giantology because he's such an influence on us, and he assisted immensely with the book. And it really went from there. Then, as we started writing the book, about a year or so after that, we suddenly got offered a TV show on History Channel, and we did a 6-part series called Search for the Lost Giants, which aired in late 2014. And it kind of interrupted the book process, so we focused on the TV show. And then we finished the book after that, and that came out in October last year. And so it's been out for about a year now. And, selling well. It's quite controversial. We go into all the kind of we've got over 250 accounts of giants from the academic record, from early explorers, eyewitness accounts, legends, and Native American tradition. We go into the biblical stuff, the Nephilim, look at that as a possibility, the Denisovans, haplogroup X, all the DNA migrations and things like this. We really get into it thoroughly, and we kind of thoroughly research the entirety of North America, as well as a bit in Mexico and the Sonora area, in Canada, and in a few other places. And we look at the Smithsonian in detail as well, a place I've actually visited. So yeah, it's quite a thorough bit of research we did. We spent a couple of years really getting our teeth into that, and we produced a book, and it's doing pretty good.
Yes, it is, and I know that whenever it first came out, I actually bought the paperback, and then it wasn't even a week later that y'all put the hardcover back out, or the hardcover out, and I was like, man, now I got to turn around and buy it again.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that.
No problem. But, yeah, I mean, what was it? Here in Texas, I know that they found a 18-foot giant down in Seymour, Texas, which is down close to San Antonio. Mm. And they also found a skull of an 18-foot giant, actually pretty much right in my backyard over here in Garland, Texas. I know you probably heard of the rock wall here in Texas.
That's correct. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they actually have done ground penetrating radar scans of it, and it's actually 4 miles by 7 miles, like a rectangle. I mean, it's a complete enclosed structure. Actually, I did an article not too long ago that one of the I think it was ancient explorers. Actually, they approached me and said, "Could we put this on our website?" I was like, "Go ahead, please. I want that information out there."
No, for sure. I mean, you talk about 18-foot giants. I've got to admit, the 18-foot giant, that's the tallest we've got in the book, is the account you just mentioned. It's hard to verify one's that big. I have to admit, it's a tough one. But yeah, I mean, they do pop up. I mean, there's examples in different countries that sort of reach that height and more as well. So it's pretty strange when you start looking into all the old records, that's for sure.
Well, I know that, what was it, when, Steve Quell and Timothy Alberino, they've got the Gen 6 Productions, and on the recent, what was it, True Legends, not the most recent, but the one before that, the Technology of the Fallen, where they went down to Peru, and they were down there, and they were going through a lot of the actual, Catholic accounts when the Spanish Catholics actually showed up there. And in some of the accounts, it talked about 27-footers. They found 27-foot giants in caves where basically all the locals were worshiping them like gods, and they were doing blood sacrifices. And they said that one of the skulls was so huge they took a rapier sword, a Spanish rapier that's about 52 inches long from the tip to the end of the handle, and they stuck it in one of the eye sockets, and only 2 inches of the blade or the handle was sticking out. That's how huge that skull was.
That's pretty strange.
Oh yeah. So, and I mean, that's the thing is, I know that you also go around and look at a lot of these megalithic sites. Do you want to tell some of the most interesting stuff that you've encountered at some of these megalithic sites as well?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, that's kind of what got me into the giants. I must admit, I was never really that, as a kid, I was kind of interested in giants in Britain and Fee Fi Fo Fum and, things like this and Goliath and all that kind of stuff. But I was, the megalithic sites have been compelling me for a very long time. Hence, that's why we founded the Megalithomania conference, over 10 years ago now, and the tours and other such things. But so many megalithic sites. I mean, you can go to virtually any country on the planet and you can find an array of megalithic sites. Dolmens, even in New York State and New England, which is Jim's territory, we get this. And so, I've spent several months, at different times researching and exploring just New England. And one of the biggest dolmens in the world is in New York State, a place called North Salem, just outside the local fire station. And it's huge, and it just doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be there. It looks like it's like from Cornwall or from, somewhere else in Europe or France or whatever. But it's very impressive everywhere you look, and it's often in the least expected places. I mean, I've just got back from two places in the Mediterranean, from Sardinia and from Menorca, and both of these islands have amazing and vast megalithic sites, temples, chambers, dolmens, standing stones, these huge naraji or taliotic towers, and the list goes on. So I'm overwhelmed at the possibilities of where you can actually find these sites. Even in places like Korea, you have like 19,000 recorded dolmens, which no one really knows anything about any of them. And so, it just gets a bit crazy. But everywhere you go, you can find stuff if you know where to look.
That's right. And also, I've got to ask you this. All these places that you go, when you talk to these locals and they tell you about the oral traditions, legends, and so on, how much have you heard about these underground corridors and basically like, subterranean stuff that underneath a lot of these megalithic sites? What have you heard?
Well, in Peru, there's a very strong tradition all through Peru and Bolivia and that part of South America of huge tunnel systems linking different sites. Cusco has many stories that go out in all directions and across the whole country. They're perfectly cut and carved, through solid granite and rock, as though they're using some kind of technology. We know that there's lots of underground. I mean, even Sardinia, Menorca, I've just been. There's lots of underground chambers and smaller tunnels and hypogeums and perfectly cut hypogeums and things like this. But yeah, there's stories all over the world, but I think Peru and Bolivia is the strongest one. There are stories from North America in the Southwest. They talk about that, linking different sites and different areas up, which they think could have been used for ancient mining, things like this. But the ones in Peru, there's some places you can actually go and explore the entrances to them. And so, you can't go far into them. They've all been blocked up. But it's thought that when the Spanish arrived and they were trying to steal all the gold back in the 1500s, that the Inca at the time, who were the most recent culture there was much earlier cultures who built all the megalithic stuff before the Inca, they actually blocked up the tunnels and hid all the gold in them. And so there might be some where there's a lot of treasure still there. So you do get treasure hunters occasionally still looking, trying to locate these particular tunnels.
Yeah, I know that recently the newest documentary that Steve Quill and Timothy did, The Unholy Sea, which is part 2 of the True Legend series. They talked to a person who actually got to go down into one of these Catholic churches that was built on top of a megalithic site. And that there was they talk about these underground highways that basically a lot of these megalithic sites are basically interconnected underground, and they even go so far as to say that they believe that some of these megalithic sites may actually be built on top of pre-Adamic sites, and that was very mind blowing when they started getting into a lot of that.
No, for sure. No, I mean, everywhere you go, you do find stories. I mean, one of the weird traditions we get in England related to tunnels, underground areas like that, is ley lines. Often, when you're describing an alignment of sites, it's described in different ways over different eras, and one of them is tunnels. But often, strangely, there are tunnels there as well. So it gets a bit confusing. But yeah, there's certainly something in that.
Hugh, with the ley lines, as far as the power that they do have, do you find that the strongest influential of these megalithic sites are at the intersections of the ley lines?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to categorize ley lines maybe first, because technically, just to clear this up for people, ley lines are just literally straight lines of ancient sites linked together. There's no energy. There's nothing else going on. It's just more like a survey in a straight line linking up, anything ancient with a particular, like a mound or a church even, or stone circle or whatever. But often you do find that there's these earth energy currents that kind of also follow these leys, or they weave around them, sort of a bit like a caduceus, the serpents around the kind of sword of the caduceus. And when these meet, you do find powerful energies, and this is very odd. And so often where these energy lines are, which are always linked to ley lines, you do find you do find there's like a vortex of energy. This is something that me and some geomancer friends are aware of and have been kind of working on over the years. So yeah, there's certainly something in that. And there's been some scientific tests have been done to prove that these sites are often built where the energy kind of accumulates naturally in the earth. And then the sites are also designed to harness it and manipulate it and make it stronger.
It's fascinating because I know that there are different places as the Vatican, the White House, that are considered to be on the ley lines and that they were built there for a reason. Do you think that the ancients knew when they were building these sites that you've been researching that they had a way of knowing exactly what they were building on?
Yes, I think the ancients were extremely smart in a scientific sense, but also very smart in an intuitive sense. And they had the time and the energy to actually observe what was going on in the landscape, in the sky. Often, I believe sites were chosen because of because they were noted by the ancient astronomer priests, or whatever you want to call these megalithic builders. And they noted strange energies there, strange effects it had on them. It can often affect your consciousness. Now, you can have altered states. Also, balls of light or orbs often noted where there's fault lines or telluric currents or energy lines meet, and even underground water can cause electric charge. So there's all these different energies forming, and they all have a positive effect on the environment, on the land, and it's like a fertilizing energy, and on humans and animals. And so I think that the ancients certainly had an understanding of that and were able to locate and place certain sites at these particular spots. But I believe they were working in two ways. One way was they were choosing the natural best spot, the best spot naturally where they kind of observed and found these kind of energies. But also they would then manipulate these energies by placing large stones in the ground, like acupuncture needles, like we do on our skin, mounds and earthworks and different shapes to control and move the energies in certain ways and direct them in certain ways to different areas and so forth. So yeah, there's certainly something. I think you've got to look at it from different perspectives when you're looking at why certain sites were chosen.
Now, Hugh, have you been to Baalbek? Have you been there with the Stone of the Pregnant Woman?
I've not been there yet, but I am definitely going there soon.
Okay.
Because that is one place that's like the biggest megaliths in the world. So have you been there?
No, I have not. I've not been to any of these places that you've been to. I'm so envious of you and Brian Forrester and a lot of these other people because y'all are always out there. And I know one that I definitely want you to talk about because when I saw this video of you when you went to go see the footprint of Goliath, please talk about that. That is so fascinating.
Yeah, that's in South Africa. That's on, I think it's I forget exactly where it is. I can't remember exactly where it is. It's on the border of another country, close to the border of another country, but I completely forget my geography there. I was so blown away we spent like 4 hours trying to find it and drive there and things like this. And that is strange. This is like a 4 foot long, maybe slightly longer footprint in solid granite with 6 toes. Yeah, so this is kind of strange. You get that in the Bible, obviously. You get that in other traditions of giants, 6 toes, and it almost looks like the foot has gone into it and it's lifted up and it's sort of created this overflow of lava or whatever it was at the time, where the toes have lifted out of the stone. But when you look into it, and we had a geologist, we had Robert Schock with us, he wasn't convinced because he's a geologist and he said, no, you can't have that. You can't literally have a footprint in granite. It can't happen. It doesn't work like that. It's like dust. It wouldn't stay in that shape and wouldn't harden like that. So there's a debate about it. I mean, some people say it was actually carved because it looked a bit like a foot naturally, and then they carved it to make it look more like a foot in honor of the local giants or in honor of traditions that were in that part of the country. But when you look into the historical record in the area, like South Africa, there are indeed giant skeletons have been found down there. So you have to kind of question it, but this is outrageously big. I mean, if it's a 4 foot long foot, we're talking 30 feet tall, something like that, something crazy, 28 feet, something like that. And so it's kind of out of the range of anything we've really come across, but it's an interesting anomaly. And even if it was carved in honor of a giant in the area or to traditions of giants, it's still really interesting in its own right.
That's right. Yes, it was very interesting. Like I said, that's one of my all-time favorite videos. Is when you guys went and y'all were checking that out. I could just tell, but the excitement on all y'all's faces while y'all were there was very contagious.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And another one that you recently saw that you talk about, the King Arthur giant.
Yeah, elaborate. Oh, and you mean in Glastonbury, England?
Yes, where they found
yes,
that there was like a cross that said, "This is the body of King David is found here," or whatever.
Yeah, no, basically, this is back in the 1100s. So it's a long time ago. Glastonbury Abbey, which is still there, was being kind of first part of it was being constructed at the time. And the monks, some of the monks had this vision. They were in touch with the king at the time and all this kind of stuff. And there were these dreams and visions of there being there's something important buried under the ground in the abbey. So they dug down, they found these strange kind of pyramids, these small pyramids buried in the ground. This is strange. They dug further down, they got about 8 feet down, and they found this lead cross, which had inscribed in it on Latin, "Here lies the remains of King Arthur and Guinevere," and all this kind of stuff. And everyone thinks that's a hoax, and that was created by the monks to attract pilgrims, i.e. tourists, to the site at the time. But when they dug further down, they found this oak coffin, this oak wood coffin, which is about 10 feet long. And inside it were the remains of a male and a female. The male, they think, was extremely tall, possibly up to 9 feet tall. And one of the descriptions was that it was so large that the gap between the eyes, you could place your fist there, and you'd still have space either side. And it was verified that it was an authentic kind of royal burial, but it's probably not Christian. It's probably Neolithic or Bronze Age, going back several thousand years BC. So that kind of really compels me, really intrigues me. That even in like where I've been living for many years in Glastonbury, right next to where we do the conference, in fact, literally next 50 yards away from where we do the conference, a giant skeleton was found like 1,000 years ago. So it's very, very intriguing. And we have similar accounts like that in the British, in the literature, in the records, rather a lot of them actually. I've been doing some intense research on it, and yeah, it keeps popping up. There's more and more keeps popping up.
Yes, and I know that you've been to Stonehenge. Have you been to the Stonehenge here in America?
I have been to America's Stonehenge. That's the one up in New Hampshire. Yeah, it's just couple of hours north of Boston. I've been there a few times. Yeah, I went there with my co-author Jim Vieira, and we explored and researched. I actually went there a bit of a little trip with Andrew Collins and Greg Little, who I kind of work with Andrew. And that's a very interesting astronomically aligned megalithic site. It's not the same, Stonehenge, obviously, in England, completely different type of site, but it has chambers, it has standing stones in this quite a large area. There's traditions there, and there's even some carbon dating, carbon-14 dating that dates it back to at least 2000 BC, so 4,000 years old, which is intriguing in itself because, if this was Native American, this is very interesting for that part of the country. They were building with stone, they were working with all these astronomical alignments, and they had a high understanding of sort of megalithic techniques, which is they weren't supposed to have, according to the academics. But it could be, because you're kind of close to the East Coast there, it could be other cultures coming in from different places. So, yeah, it's really interesting. So I really recommend people check it out. It used to be called Mystery Hill. Now it's called America's Stonehenge, I think, for obvious reasons. But they found artifacts there. The guy who runs it is really cool. I recommend people give that a visit. There is actually a few other sites right near there. Within an hour of that place as well, which are worth checking out.
Yeah, that it's actually aligned to the one over there in England, right?
I've heard. Yeah, I've looked at some of the stuff on that. Yeah, there's certain people make these kind of claims, but you have to. I mean, it's like a ley line as such. But you have to kind of have several sites linking up to have a proper alignment. I mean, there's even stories that it goes down to Lebanon and places like this. It doesn't actually go to Baalbek, but it goes to the capital of Lebanon, like Beirut, the ancient Phoenician port of Beirut. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think there's something in that because my Earth grids research says so, but I haven't personally checked it out myself. But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you look at, like, for example, there are alignments between American sites and other sites around the world. If we go to Ohio, the Newark earthworks, which is a massive circular earthwork, which is one of the biggest in the world, really, and it's got octagonal earthworks. There's been strange kind of biblical kind of artifacts have been found there. But the main alignment of that site, if you stretch that and continue the alignment for, I think, 6,000 miles, it hits the Great Pyramid at Giza. And so that kind of blew me away when I spotted that. And Ross actually showed me that, Ross Hamilton. So there are alignments like that are of very high interest to me.
Yeah, it was actually L.A. Marzulli was the first person that actually saw that, where he actually went out there and talked to him, and I believe it was the son of the American Stonehenge that had started plotting a line off the equinox and went out over the ocean, and that it lined up perfectly with the equinox at the Stonehenge over there in London.
Yeah, it would do, because the equinox is perfectly east-west. So anything that's kind of east and west is going to. I mean, I'm going to look into this actually. Yeah, I'm going to check this out. I know the guy. I forget his name actually, from America Stonehenge, but yeah, I'll get in touch with him about that. Sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, I'll shoot you the video on that so you can check it out. But you brought up another point that I wanted to hit on, which is your buddy Ross Hamilton, another guy that I look into and follow his work. Very interesting. He does solid research. And could you talk about Ross a little bit?
Sure. Ross Hamilton we call him the godfather of giantology. He's got used to it now. I don't think he liked it when we first called him that, but he is like our mentor. He mentored me and Jim in all this giant research. I first came across his work probably about 10, 15 years ago. It'd been out for a few years at the time, and when I read A Tradition of Giants, it completely stunned me. I read the whole thing in one go. I just couldn't believe how amazing this story was. And he really pieced together the prehistory of the giants with Vine Deloria Jr., who was a Native American Lakota scholar. He was also an activist. And Vine Deloria was kind of like Ross's mentor. So he kind of, in a weird way, became our mentor as well. And we reference a lot of Vine Deloria's work in the book, because he often talked about giants as well. And he was picking up and recording all the old traditions of Native Americans going back many thousands of years, potentially. This is something that Ross kind of cottoned onto and realized was important. And he worked with people like Jake Swamp, Vine Deloria, and others to piece it all together. Ross now works with Jeffrey Wilson, who's a brilliant researcher, also based in Ohio, in the Cincinnati area. And Ross's main focus, apart from the giants, which he's like the number one world leading expert on, in my opinion and Jim's opinion, he's also been studying Serpent Mound and the Ohio earthworks, and especially the astronomy and star maps associated with them. He's done a fantastic book on Serpent Mound, The Mystery of the Serpent Mound. Also Star Mounds, I highly recommend. It's a fantastic piece of work, linking kind of a star map over the Great Ohio landscape and how the ancients worked with that, and it was all encoded within their Native American traditions. And yeah, I'm not sure what he's working on now, but I know he's been looking into different landscape zodiacs, like the one in Glastonbury and other ones around the world. And he's going to be republishing A Tradition of Giants, which I'm really happy I'm going to be helping him with in any way I can. He helped us so much with our book. He edited it. He kind of corrected everything. He was just a brilliant mentor. And so we're going to assist him any way we can with the republishing of A Tradition of Giants, which is going to be updated, expanded, going a bit more out of the Ohio area. And yeah, I recommend people check out his work. It's very, very important work he's done.
Yes, very. I know. I wanted to ask you, David Flynn. Are you aware of David Flynn and his work?
I'm not sure. Not up to, tell me. I'm not sure. No, I don't think so.
He's the one that discovered the geoglyphs in Tiwanaku.
No, I mean, I don't know about this.
Okay. Yeah, he actually, through Google Maps, or Google Earth, I should say, he discovered the geoglyphs that are carved into the terrain in Tiwanaku, and they're only visible from way up in the air. I mean, we're talking miles up in the air. And it's very close to the, Kipu, where they take the knots, the string with the knots. And it's basically, the people in Peru say that it is the language of the gods. That's what they actually refer to it as. And it was only like the high priest class down there in Peru where they actually even knew how to read it and speak it. And the geoglyphs they are identical to this Kipu writing, which, like I said, the native oral traditions is that it's the language of the gods. Well, recently, Timothy Alberino and them, NASA had put out something about Morse code on Mars. Did you ever see that article?
No.
Yeah, he actually put it side by side with the geoglyphs in Tiwanaku, and I mean, they are very, very almost identical. So, I mean, that's the thing is, I know in a lot of David Flynn's work, he was talking about a lot of stuff, this megalithic and ancient stuff, and then things on Mars as well, in his book, Cydonia.
Okay, yeah, I'm not aware of any of this, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Like I said, that's stuff I'll send you also for you to check out, because I know that you would definitely find it interesting.
Okay, cool.
Hugh, is there anywhere that you have wanted to go to do research that you haven't been able to get the permission yet to go there, or for any other reason?
No, not really. No, it's just a matter of finding the time and the money. Really, that's all it comes down to with me. I'm one of those people who will always, if I really have to go somewhere, I will make it happen somehow or other. Even if I have to apply through the government and things like this. I mean, there are some places which are a bit dangerous to go. I've been to some very dangerous places. Some place in southern Guatemala, which was actually the most dangerous place I went there at the time in the world. Baalbek's a little bit out of bounds at the moment because it's right in the middle of the whole Syrian crisis and all that kind of stuff. But I would probably still go there soon anyway. But I think when you get to the Far East, you might find a few problems, or parts of Russia. And also you got to look at private land issues. I mean, in North America, you get shot if you go on private land, whereas in England, they can't really shoot you, which is good. So you can kind of get around more and feel a bit safer if you do stumble across some private land. But no, I haven't come across anything that's actually blocked me going unless it's private land. That's the only sort of issue I've ever come across.
Well, I know that in a lot of the documentaries that have came out of South America, it's been mentioned in about all of them, the difficulty of getting the rights to go in and actually look and get into places. What exactly are some of the things that you have to go through that the people that don't do that have no clue of? Just exactly how much work goes into just being able to get to where you need to be to do the research.
Yeah, I mean, I think, people underestimate that. People sort of think I have some kind of glamorous kind of 5-star lifestyle. Well, it just isn't like that. I mean, on the tours nowadays, we do tend to try and stay in nice hotels and have very nice accommodations and traveling, but it's still hard work. You still got to hike to these places and all weather, all terrain, and things like this. And it's a lot of work. People don't realize that if you want to travel, if you want to explore, I mean, other explorers will say the same to me. You've got to plan carefully. You've got to have all the right equipment. You've got to not forget anything, and you've got to be prepared for the worst. And you've got to have a backup plan sometimes. So, I mean, we try not to, I mean, unless I'm just with one or two people, I'll never take a tour group into anywhere dangerous. Never. I would never even entertain that idea. But I would probably go with a couple of friends or on my own, because you can kind of slip in and out of places without anyone noticing you if you're careful. But yeah, I mean, just going around Peru and even Mexico, you often have to get to certain sites that are, that aren't very popular. You have to kind of go off the beaten track. You have to hike. You have to kind of hope the locals like you and things like this. So yeah, it's always a bit of fun, shall we say.
Now, have you ever been to Derinkuyu in Turkey?
Yes, we have been there. Yeah, that's one of the underground complexes that date back to around 10,000 years. There's several of them, obviously. There's several down there. But yeah, I went there with Andrew Collins a couple of times. We take tour groups out to Turkey, mainly for Gobekli Tepe, but obviously there's lots of other very impressive sites in that area as well. So yeah, that's a very, very strange place, Derinkuyu.
What did you think of Derinkuyu when you first got there? First time you ever went there?
I was highly impressed with it because you're only shown like 3 levels or 4 levels, I think, which only go down 50 or 60 feet. But there's actually much further. I mean, there's like 10 or 15 levels, and then it goes on for several miles in different directions. Huge amount of manpower to carve them out. And whoever was doing it had a reason. There's no way they were just doing that because they were bored. This was a serious operation, and whether they were trying to protect themselves from something happening on the surface, whether it be like cannibalistic giants or it was some kind of cataclysm, acid rain, who knows? But they did it for a reason, and they wanted to, and they could seal it up with these sort of circular megalithic wheel doors where you could kind of roll them into position only from the inside. From the outside, you can't move them, but from the inside, you can move them, out of the way and in the way of the door. So yeah, that's something about that. It seemed like it was a serious place, and it was created for serious reasons.
Yes, it is very mind blowing when you first see Derinkuyu for the first time, and that what they say that like several thousand people, was it 5,000 people or something like that, could live down there. And they even had room for animals and everything else.
I mean, it was like an underground city, basically. I mean, there's not just one of them. I mean, there's several of them. I mean, and they only let tourists in a very shallow area, but there's a lot more, and they go very deep. And I would imagine there are more out there, more than that. And some of the ages on them, the dating they've done on them is outstanding. It goes back 10,000 years. I mean, this is like the end of the kind of era of Göbekli Tepe in southeast Turkey, and so. It's interesting. It's kind of at the time, Göbekli Tepe was kind of being covered up. When they may have migrated northwest to the area around Cappadocia and Derinkuyu and others, and actually go out and build these chambers. Maybe some cataclysm was taking place, and they had to hide or something like this. So yeah, the jury's out exactly why they built it or why they dug it out. But yeah, it's a very, very strange and impressive place.
Yeah, and that's another thing most people don't really understand about Gobekli Tepe, like you're talking, that it was a giant, ancient city, and that it was covered up. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, Gobekli Tepe is probably the most important archaeological site on the planet at the moment. It's very interesting. It was discovered probably in 1996, announced to the world a couple of years later by Klaus Schmidt, who unfortunately died a couple of years ago. He was the head archaeologist there. But he even admitted before he died that it could be up to 14,000 years old. Officially, it's about 12,000 or, 11,500. But it's basically a multitude of freestanding stone circles, these beautifully carved T-pillars, and up to about 60 of these enclosures, mind you. And then the older ones were built over with mounds, like stone mounds, and then other enclosures, circular stone circles, were built on top. And this went on for like about 2,000 or 3,000 years, and then they covered the whole thing up. And this was like a massive area. This is like a couple of square miles we're talking about here. And it's currently closed actually at the moment, but it reopens next year. We're going there late May next year on a little tour, which we're taking people to. So they're reopening. They're building this beautiful roof on it, so it's going to look as best it's ever looked. Really, they had this horrible wooden construction all over it, but now they're going to have this nice big clean roof on it without too many wooden poles in the way. But yes, very impressive site. It's got these beautiful relief carvings of snakes and animals and different astronomical phenomena. And the T-pillars are like abstract humans, like wearing these belts with their hands touching their navel, their belly button, much like you get in Tiwanaku in Bolivia, and and other places around the world. Even the Easter Island statues they kind of touch their navel. So there's a lot going on. Gobekli Tepe is really the smoking gun of what a lot of people have been talking about wondering if there was a prehistoric civilization at around 10, 12,000 years ago. And it certainly seems the case that there was, certainly in southeast Turkey at least.
Yes. And another place that I wanted to bring up, you've been to Petra, Jordan, correct?
I've not been to Petra. No, we tried to go there a couple of years ago, but we couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Oh man, yeah. That's the thing. If you get to go to Petra, Jordan, I want to know all about that gigantic doorway. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And also, there's another one. If you go to Baalbek, I think it's the Temple of Jupiter, where it's got the gigantic doorway. Have you seen that one?
Yes, yeah. No, I'm desperate to go there. We're thinking about going there this time next year. Actually, on a little tour. We're looking into it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly. I mean, these were not built by people our size. I mean, these had to have been giants, because why would they need doorways this huge for normal sized people?
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the little mysteries of these sites, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you get these false doors in other places as well. Real doorways going into various chambers and things like this, but you get these huge false doors in places like Petra and Peru and Bolivia and Egypt and other such sites, which is a very odd phenomenon in itself.
Hey, could you talk about the stone coffins in Egypt? You know, the ones I'm talking about that they said were for bulls and ox or whatever?
Yeah, in near Saqqara, which is one of the oldest pyramids in Egypt, there's an area called the Serapeum, and this is an underground complex with many of these huge granite and diorite coffins, like beautifully carved, precision carved, and placed all in alignment with each other. It was thought they were for bulls, but they could well have been for giants. They could have had another purpose. They could have had some technological purpose. But you can actually go and visit these. It's quite possible. And I mean, they're one of the big mysteries of ancient Egypt, to be honest with you. And the sophistication of this, I mean, it must be the same date as Saqqara, or at least close to it, which is one of the oldest in Egypt, which is probably 2,800 BC, 2,900 BC, which is roughly the same time that Stonehenge was being constructed. And so, yeah, they're one of the big mysteries. And you do find examples of huge coffins like that in different parts of the world. So there are examples in the Far East, in Japan, other examples even in South America. So yeah, they're a very strange sites. Well worth a visit. I mean, I got to go and see them in 2010 when I was over there, and it completely blew my mind.
Yeah, they said that they were carved out of one complete stone. They said
that's correct.
That even the lid and everything, just one solid piece of stone, and that they are underground in these tight little corridors. It's like it just blows my mind when I saw that. I was like, man, there is so much going on this planet that we're not even aware of.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree and understand. I mean, you do get that though all over Egypt. I mean, this is Christopher Dunn's speciality, and Yusuf Awiyan and others. And there's something to be said for that. Yeah, no, without a doubt. That there's a very high level of sophisticated megalithic technology going on at these, especially in ancient Egypt and in Peru and other sites around the world. I mean, almost everywhere you can look for it and find extremely advanced megalithic technology.
Yeah, and I believe it was Brian Forrester. He's the one that really educated me on the Mohs scale and how a lot of this stuff is, for what a lot of the academic is actually trying to say, that, they were Bronze Age, this, so on, that there's no way that they could have even done a lot of this stuff. It's like they had to have been far more technologically advanced in the past than we are today, because we can't even duplicate a lot of this stuff.
That is true, yeah. I mean, this is it. I mean, it's almost like the technology. I mean, this is something that Flinders Petrie was saying. He was one of the first people. He was like this British archaeologist back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and he was said that like it's almost like there's not technology isn't quite around today, but in his later life he realized technology was being advanced in the current age, which was then able to do some of the things he'd seen 20 years earlier in Egypt. And he was like, oh, so it's almost like a sort of time warp. It's like, and now we're at this point in history, which is 100 years later than Flinders Petrie, and the technology now can do what you could do in Egypt now. So there's this strange parallel with the time we're in now and the technological evidence in ancient Egypt. So that's one of the very strange anomalies that we do find, is that as our technology increases now, it kind of matches what they were doing. So yeah, this is very, very interesting. But you look at the polygonal stones and walls in Peru and Bolivia and places like that, and you have to question, it's the same kind of technology. We have the same precision cut stonework, drill holes, gold plated, core samples and things like this. It's incredible when you start looking for these.
Oh yeah, and it's like they expect people to believe that it was emancipated Hebrews out there that were doing this with logs and ropes and pulley systems, and it's like there is just no way. There is no way. I'm not buying that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Was there anything else that has really anything that really blew your mind while you were out in the field at some of these places that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, well, basically, I've been researching and writing a book about stone circles at the moment, and kind of sounds a little bit boring when you first mention it, but I've started noticing around the world there's evidence of stone circles almost everywhere you look. I mean, there's a huge stone circle in Morocco called Masura, which is almost as big as the biggest one in Britain, Avebury. Even in the south of France and going into Spain, the stone circles, some of the oldest megalithic sites have been found in Israel. And there's even in the Bible, there's mentions of things called Gilgals, and these are stone circles. It literally translates as circle of standing stones. And there's talk about them. They were being used in ceremonies, and dances were taking place at these sites. And then they found this submerged stone circle off the coast of Israel called Atlit Yam. And this is up to 7,000 years old, or even older. And it's also got cut marks on it, which is the cut marks are what you find at Gobekli Tepe as well, which is very strange. But you find them all over northern Britain and Scotland. Sort of like these little scoops, like ice cream scoops out of stone. You also find them at Tiwanaku, mind you, and I've seen them in Easter Island. So you have to question why they were doing these little techniques, little megalithic techniques at these sites. But yeah, the stone circle thing's been really, really intriguing me because I've been researching and writing this book about them, which is coming out actually next March. So yes, that's that. I mean, I've just been looking into that from a more global perspective rather than just. Most people just think stone circles just in Britain and that's it. I mean, arguably there are over 1,000 stone circles have been reported in Britain, so that is intriguing in itself. But we have to kind of look at it from a global perspective nowadays.
Have you found any connection, Hugh, between some of the megaliths and crop circles, the way things have been laid out?
Yes, you do find that, yes. Obviously, with the crop circles, we have an incredible amount of geometry, sophisticated mathematics, even astronomy encoded within them. It's something I'm very into, the crop circles. It's a strange little kind of hobby of mine. And it was actually the crop circles that got me into stone circles, funnily enough, because the geometry does match. I mean, when you look at the stone circles of ancient Britain, the work of Alexander Thom, who's a brilliant Oxford-trained engineer in Scottish guy who went around 300 or so circles in Britain and actually analysed them, surveyed them, and found that they encoded sophisticated different types of geometry and mathematics using the megalithic yard, and also a very advanced astronomy. And these same principles, the same number systems are evident in crop circles, which are found near stone circles. So you have these kind of stone circles which are permanent. They never shift. They never leave the land. Then you have the crop circles, which are impermanent, and they just turn up for a few months in the summer, then disappear forever. And so there's this real kind of parallel between these different things. I'm very intrigued by the relationship of crop circles to ancient sites because I live right in the heart of where they appear in southwest England. And even this year, I went out and I filmed with my kind of fun little drone thing, about 23 of them.
Oh.
A little hobby of mine, and you can see them all on the YouTube, the Megalithomania UK YouTube channel. It's quite fun. It's quite a fun little hobby, but there's a real mystery as to who and how these things, where they come from.
Do you believe that it is possibly a lost language?
The crop circles as a lost language. There's some people talk about that. I mean, I don't really get my mind too involved in it anymore because of the controversy with it, because of the hoaxing, the deception, and all the rubbish that goes along with it. I kind of stay away from it a little bit because it could be a lost language. And the problem is you've got loads of them are man-made by people trying to trick and deceive people who are very smart and very good at making crop circles. And so you've got this real game going on as to which ones you could trust. And so I've got to a point where I just observe them, photograph and film them, and share it with the world rather than try and give my opinion about their origins and who makes them. But the further you go back into the 80s and you go to the 60s and you go back hundreds of years, you realise they weren't hoaxes, the older ones, but they're the ones you've got to look at for the real knowledge. And if you look at the early circles in the 1980s and 70s going up to the early 90s, most of those as well were probably not man-made. And so there's some really sophisticated systems of numbers, geometry, astronomy, and metrology, i.e. number systems that were found within them. And there's certainly something going on with them, whether it's interdimensional or alien communication, or whether it's the fairies and the elementals trying to communicate with us, or it's Gaia, the earth, freaking out at us, or what it is. We don't know, but it's a very interesting subject to at least enjoy looking at them from.
I found them interesting too. I'm sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, have you found any interesting stuff about the fairies, since you brought that up?
I don't know what you mean exactly, but yeah, I mean, it's something I'm intrigued by because there's traditions of it. You have very strong traditions of that in ancient Britain, especially in Ireland, especially in parts of Scotland, not so much in England anymore, but these are it's almost like another otherworldly existence. And I think these are what we're dealing with when we're dealing with geomancy, dealing with ley lines and earth energies and light phenomena actually seen at these sites. I think then there's an intelligent communication going on as well. And I think that could be what's responsible for the crop circles as such, especially the early ones. It's a bit of far out, I'm not going to go too much into this, but there's this whole philosophy called daemonic reality. Brilliant book by Patrick Harper. I do recommend people check it out. Daemonic, not demonic, daemonic. It's like looking at the daemons, like the sort of elemental realm. It's nothing to do with demons or anything. And there's this whole realm, and they're very intelligent. There's all these gnomes, dwarves, elves, all this kind of stuff all happening. Fairies, sprites, will-o'-the-wisp, and so on and so forth. And these were very much in communication with humans for a very long time before roads and towns and computers and everything kind of took over, and we're not connected with that realm anymore. Some people are, especially those that live out in nature. But yeah, I think there's an element of elementals which we need to look at again. And I've got a good friend called Sean Kerwin, and he's a brilliant geomancer, and he actually kind of communicates with these beings. He's very psychic and he's not far out. He's kind of down to earth, solid guy, and he just what he does. And so yeah, something to be said about that. And there's certainly a connection with some of the more strange mysteries on this planet.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is because I know that Gary Wayne actually talked about quite extensively on the fairies and, like you said, all the different little creatures and stuff in his book. And I know that one part where he talked about the gray fairies, or not the gray fairies, maybe it was gray fairies, I'm not sure. But anyways, he said that when you look into the stories about the gray fairies, they line up with the gray aliens, identical, about abducting people and using technology and so on. And it was just rather interesting that when you said that, it just made me think of that. I was like, man, if I don't ask you about this, Gary Wayne's going to be very disappointed in me.
No, it's quite possible. Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know about the grey fairies, but I do know that some of these beings are like human-sized. They look like humans. People interact with them, they don't even realise they're not human. Some of them, they only travel in straight lines. This is another very strange thing. We're mentioning ley lines. And often in Ireland, you have to leave your window open or your door open to let them go through, or they'll disrupt and cause chaos in your house. And if you trap them in there. And so you have to keep the doors and windows open so they can get through. Very strange stories, but this is a very strong tradition in Ireland. Also, often, if you build a house and the corner of it's on this fairy path, you have to sometimes they've had to rebuild the corner of the house so it doesn't block the fairy path and it allows them to travel past again. And so, yeah, you do. There's a connection even with ley lines, but as for grey aliens, I don't know about that. I'm not aware of that. There are some people say even Carl Jung was talking about this in some of his work, where he believed it's always what is popular at the time is what our consciousness sees when it gets affected or altered, potentially with the energies we were talking about earlier, whether it be, grey aliens nowadays, it was fairies before, it was other things before that. So, yeah, there could be something in that.
Yes. One other thing that I definitely want to hit on with you is because you've been at a lot of these places, portals and stargates.
Okay, is that that's quite a big statement question. Portals and stargates. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure what to say about that, but yes, that's quite plausible. I've never disappeared through a portal or a stargate. I'm still here, I think. But I've heard some strange stories, but none of them are verified. But there's some. I was just talking about this with someone on Facebook the other day, actually. That's
basically what I was wanting to know. Any of the stories that you've heard while you've been out and about and been to some of these places and talked to the local people.
Well, there's this one in Peru called Amarumuru, which is near the Bolivian border next to Lake Titicaca, and that's like one of those large false doors. And apparently that's called the Devil's Doorway, or various other different names it's given. And if you and it's supposed to have a tunnel all the way to Cusco, which is several hundred miles away. But people are supposedly could, at certain times of the day or night or year, they could walk through there, and they would get stuck in the rock, solid in the rock, if they lost their vibrational kind of mindset. And there's people who've completely disappeared when they've stood there at the door. I've heard stories even about. There's one story I read about Stonehenge where there was a bunch of people and some lightning or some strange light phenomena happened when people were kind of camping next to Stonehenge. This is a long time ago. And they disappeared. They weren't there when people went up to check. And so, yeah, you never know. But I haven't ever seen anyone disappear in front of my eyes or anything like that. So I can't really comment.
Okay. Yeah, I had to ask you about that because, like I said, you go to a lot of these places, they definitely talk about it. And then that one that you talked is one of the most well-renowned, known, supposed stargates or portals that's out there.
There are many. One of the people who talks about that mostly, I think, was William Henry. He did some research and books about stargates, but he's actually speaking at our Origins conference in a couple of weeks up in London. But it's not really my kind of area of research.
Got you.
One of the questions that I have is when you come across all of these ancient megaliths, what is the method that you use for dating their age? Because carbon-14 came under a lot of fire in recent years.
The only way I would date something is probably the astronomy. Look at the astronomical alignments, and you can trace it back with precession. But a lot of the dating has been done already. There's not really much that hasn't been done. There's some controversy about certain sites. One of those is Tiwanaku and Pumapunku in Bolivia because they only dig a few feet down and then they try and date everything from that. And clearly that's been over thrown with a cataclysm, and so there's been mud and rock and water all over it. So everything's probably much, much deeper. But I don't do dating. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm just like an antiquarian, and so I don't date things as such. But the best way really is to look at the astronomy of sites. You can often see how buried they are, how much lichen is on them, and things like this, to get some idea. But as for the dating, that's a controversial one because you can't date stone. It's always about organic matter that's found near or within the stones or under the stones.
Intriguing.
Okay, and one last thing, and I promise this is the last thing I'll ask you. When you went to the Father Crespi Museum, please talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I went down there with my co-author Jim Vieira, who's also my good buddy, and we did some research down there. We were going to go to Teo's Cave, but it was too muddy at the time, too much hassle. So we met up with Yanis and April from ancient-origins.net, and they'd met someone who thought they knew where some of the Father Crespi treasure was. So we went on this crazy mission for about 3 or 4 days, non-stop, being sent down wild goose chases, dead ends. We had to talk to all these people in this Catholic kind of church and then this monastery, and then we had to go to this museum and then to these vaults in banks and so on and so forth. And eventually we got into the Father Crespi collection and we actually saw and filmed. I mean, you can see the video on YouTube, but we did a whole kind of exploration. It's like a 30-minute documentary that I produced about our exploration. And we found the Lost Metal Library of Father Crespi, which is like stuff of legend. However, all the good stuff, all the gold and the bronze, gone. All we were left with was like tin artifacts, but at least we found it and we documented it. But yeah, there's something very strange about all that. Again, people think that could be a big hoax. But we saw some stuff there. We saw elongated skulls in his collection. We saw these huge megalithic slabs with spiral carvings on, like you find at Tiwanaku, you find in Britain and places. And it's a very intriguing, very fun exploration. But all the information, do check out our YouTube channel, the Megalithomania UK channel. We've got a full, people can watch it for free. It's a completely free channel. Everyone can watch everything. That's one of like 400 videos we've got up there. So yeah, please check it out.
Kay, did you want to ask anything else?
Actually, you covered just about everything I had on my mind.
I take it back. I take it back. Oh, go ahead, Kay.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Mine will go last.
No, I just thought of one more thing that I did want to ask about the 50-pound hammer and the gigantic axe heads.
Yeah, that's it. That's one of the chapters in our book, Giants on Record. It's we did a chapter called Curious Artifacts, and we came across some 33, not 50 pounds, 33 and a half or 33.9 pound hammers. One of them, several of them were found in mounds. We even got access to one thanks to our brilliant artifact collector friend called Brock Smith. And he's based in Mississippi, and he's an artifact collector, and he found out about our book. He saw the TV show and said, look, I've got this 33-pound hammer. Do you want to have a look at it? And he actually sent it to us. And we had it in our possession for a couple of weeks. I'm still yet to produce the video. We filmed it all and me and Jim made a little video about it, which we're going to produce any day. And but yeah, I mean, you're talking about a kind of hammerhead or an axe head. You can't wield anything over 7 pounds, maybe. 5 pounds is the biggest normally nowadays. This is like 33 pounds. And we've got other ones. There's like 10 different examples we've come across. And so it's not just one. It's a ridiculous amount. So yeah, so it's one of those. It's kind of like it's helping us prove the case with the giants, because unfortunately most of the giants have been removed, disappeared by the Smithsonian, by NAGPRA, and other things. So find these giant artifacts is a really kind of useful assistance in trying to prove our point.
Yeah, because you said there was over 2,500 of the 50-pound hammers that they found all in one area.
Well, we're talking. I was talking about America, but in Wales, in North Wales, there's a place called Llandudno, and there's the Great Orme mines, these copper mines that date to about 2000 BC, and visited there this summer actually, and we went exploring up there, and there's a whole bunch of these massive hammerheads there, which are like not 50 pounds, they're like 30 pounds and such like, and at the most, and inexplicable, and you have to question who on earth was doing that.
Very good, very good. Kay, I'm going to let you wrap up because I know Kay had a question she wanted to ask.
Well, I was just wondering if you'd like to share with everyone where they can get in contact with you and where they can find you on YouTube. And if there's any way that people can become involved with either donating or whatever they can do to help you further your research.
All donations are welcome. Yes, absolutely. Crikey. I haven't even thought of that. Yeah, no, I mean, we self-fund ourselves. We run tours, we do conferences, we write books, YouTube. We do anything we can to like bring in some revenue so we can afford to go and travel and research. We don't have any sponsors or any funding or anything like that. If people would like to donate, we're very happy, and we would dedicate our book or video to them. If they want to find out what I'm up to, you can just Google Hugh Newman. You'll find me. Hugh Newman, explorer, megalithomaniac, ancient mysteries guy. My books are on Amazon. You can check out megalithomania.co.uk and hughNewman.co.uk. Also, they can find me on Facebook and various social media, and you can contact us through the websites. Easy peasy. So we hope people get in touch. But I mean, the YouTube channel is a good resource. We have 425 videos up of lectures, full lectures. We filmed at all our conferences. And other conferences I've filmed my explorations all around the world with colleagues like Brian Forrester, Freddie Silver, Andrew Collins, Graham Hancock, and others who often come on our tours, and we kind of film them. And we've got interviews with very interesting people like John Anthony West, John Michel, and others. And we've got a real array of research, and we're just cracking on. We just love this. We love exploring, we love traveling, we love investigating and researching and writing. It's kind of what we do. And and we do these conferences. So if anyone's in England, they want to come along. I'm not sure when this is going to be out, but we do a conference in London on November the 12th, 13th with Andrew Collins, William Henry, Robert Bouval, Greg Little, Maria Wheatley, and others. And then in May in England, in Glastonbury, on the 21st of May, 2017, we have the big Megalithomania conference, which is has myself, Freddie Silver, Professor Ronald Hutton, Howard Crowhurst, Yusuf and Patricia Alwian are going to be speaking, a bunch of other people, and we do private access tour to Stonehenge for that. If people want to come from abroad, we also do 3 days of tours after the conference, so we have quite a lot packed, and we're going to see some amazing sites with all the experts and have 2 days of talks. This is next May, so that's a good one to come to. That's all on the megalithomania.co.uk website.
Any of you listeners who haven't had a chance to get or even familiar with Hugh Newman's work, check it out. It's absolutely fascinating. There's not a dull second in it.
I know. I live on Megalithomania on YouTube. I live on there. I have not watched all the videos. That's the thing. Like he's saying, he's not joking. There's tons and tons of videos on there, but my goodness,
Yes.
It is one of my all-time favorite YouTube channels, and I live on that channel.
Excellent. Appreciate that. That's good to know.
Yes. And is there anything that you wanted to share with us, Hugh, before we sign off for this evening?
Yeah, there's one thing actually. This is, I think this is important. If there's any people listening, I mean, we're gathering data and research for future books and videos, and we've potentially got another TV show in lined up. But we're looking for anyone who's got any leads on any giant skulls, skeletons, bones, teeth, anything like that they've come across or they have records of in their own family history, the local history, the town, county history, anything like that. Also, anyone who knows any lost sites, ancient sites in their area, wherever they are in the world, in America mainly, obviously. And we're just interested because often it's the people who've got stuff close to them and that isn't well known is often the most interesting thing. This is how we work. We kind of want to go into the people's local area and get them to dig out what they've got. We've got people contacting us after the book came out that said, look, I've actually got this whole artifact collection in my garage of my granddad's. I didn't realize it was important until I read your book or watched your TV show. So you never know. So I just encourage people, if they've got historical documents or artifacts or bones or anything lying around, we're very interested. Please get in touch.
Yes, and
Marion, Ohio.
go ahead.
Sorry, Chad.
Go ahead.
Marion, Ohio is where I grew up, Hugh, and it has a history of giants there. But the people that lived there at the time when I was growing up, we had no clue that there was a background of giants, that there were news articles that dated back to the early 1900s, late 1800s. So that might be an area that you would like to maybe check out.
No, for sure. I know a few people in Ohio, so we just encourage people to do a bit of research for us and send us any leads. It fascinates us. I mean, we have a page on Facebook that people can contact us on. It's just called Giants on Record by Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman. It's just a Facebook page. It's all our information about the book. They can contact us through that if they want. We also have a Search for the Lost Giants TV show page as well. People contact us through that as well. And so anything like that is very useful to know.
It's interesting. What were you going to say, Chad? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to mention the fact that me and Justin and his brother Wes, Justin has a show called Fourth Watch Radio Network. He recently did the announcement that we're starting Fourth Watch Films. And we are currently going to be traveling across the United States working on a documentary that's going to be coming out in March of 2017. We have other projects that we're, brainstorming right now, and I'm hoping that we can go out on some of these tours with you guys in the future, because we want to go to some of these megalithic sites and do shoot some footage as well. So I'm hoping that later on down the road, me and you guys are actually going to be able to hook up in person and shoot some footage and do some stuff together.
Sounds like a good plan. I like it.
I just want to thank you tonight, Hugh, for coming on with Chad and I. This has been extremely enlightening. The time has went by so fast.
Oh, yes. This was the fastest interview ever. It was so much fun.
And we hope that you'll come back on with us again and keep us updated.
Absolutely. No, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate coming on.
Good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say tonight's prayer. And Chad, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
I'm so humbled right now to have you on here.
Yes, me too. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us all together. And this time has been of enlightenment and of edifying you, Father. And we pray that you bless Hugh's research and just carry him to all the places that you want him to go to uncover the historical and biblical past, Father. Please bless him in his research and his travels, and our listeners for tuning in, that their eyes may be opened to everything that you want them to see, Father. Please look after my brother Chad. And I thank you again, Father, for everything that you do and for all the love and the blessings that you bestow upon us. In Jesus' holy and mighty name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
And Hugh, again, thank you very much, Chad, as always. And that's going to do it for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we pray that you have a blessed week. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light